Google is one of the biggest tech companies in the world. In fact, Google is so rich that it could hypothetically buy the Netherlands and Poland and still have some change left. It owns Search, Gmail, YouTube, Android, Chrome, Maps, Drive, Ads, Cloud, and an entire ecosystem that quietly runs the modern internet. And yet, with all that power, all that money, and all that dominance, have you noticed that Google doesn't really have a social media platform? Of course, you could make a case for YouTube. You and I both know YouTube is more of a video platform than a place where friends casually connect, chat, and share daily life updates. So why is that? Why is it that Google doesn't have a social media platform like Facebook and Twitter? Well, the simple answer is that they did. Not one, not two, not even three, but a long list of social media platforms all created in an attempt to dominate and outperform Facebook. And somehow, some way, Facebook still came out on top every single time. Now this is the story of how Facebook quietly crushed Google in the attention war. Long before Facebook became a household name, social networking already existed. Friendster was one of the first platforms that let people connect, share updates, and build online identities. It was revolutionary for its time, and it inspired platforms like MySpace, which in turn paved the way for Facebook. Google saw the potential early. So early that within just 1 year of Friendster launching, Google tried to buy it. They offered around $30 million worth of Google stock, which at the time was a massive offer for a relatively young internet startup. But Friendster said no. Advisors told the founder this could be a multi-billion-dollar company, and in hindsight, that decision turned out to be catastrophic. Friendster eventually collapsed, faded into irrelevance, and shut down. Those Google shares, had they accepted them, would today be worth well over $1 billion. But Google wasn't faring better either. With the rejection, they were now stuck between the devil and a hard place. Because if they couldn't buy a social network, it meant they had to build one from scratch. And that's exactly what they did. In January 2004, Google launched Orkut. It was built by a Turkish Google engineer named Orkut as a side project. Orkut launched just weeks before Facebook. To put that into perspective, Google entered social media before Mark Zuckerberg ever opened Facebook to the world. Orkut had profiles, posts, photos, comments, everything we associate with social networks today. And for a moment, it looked promising. But here's the problem. Social media is all about momentum. Either people flood in, or they don't. Orkut never really caught fire globally. Yes, it became popular in Brazil and India, but elsewhere it struggled. Meanwhile, Facebook exploded across the United States and Europe. The thing is, Orkut was under-resourced. It had a small team, slow feature development, poor moderation, and eventually suffered major security breaches that leaked passwords and sensitive data. Trust eroded quickly, and we all know how important trust is in the social media niche. Eventually, Google shut it down. Their first attempt at creating a powerful social media platform failed woefully. But it wouldn't be their last. In 2008, they launched Google Friend Connect. The idea sounded smart in theory. Any website could suddenly become social. You log in with your Google account, see which friends are on that site, and interact. It's a good business concept, but the problem was that users didn't care. Website owners didn't adopt it, and engagement never really took off. In fact, it was dead on arrival, and quietly, Google killed it. By this point, Facebook was on a colonization mission. It had dominated almost all the continents, which didn't spell good fortunes for Google. So in 2009, they launched Google Wave. Now this was one of the biggest gambles Google ever took. Analysts hyped it as a Facebook killer. It was pitched as email, instant messaging, document collaboration, social networking, and blogging all rolled into one. However, it was so complex that users didn't understand it. I mean, if you had to explain a product for 5 minutes before someone could use it, you'd already lost. It tried to do everything and ended up doing nothing well. Business 101 will teach you that clarity beats complexity every single time. Google Wave was so confusing that it never found product market fit. And once again, Google pulled the plug. And by now, the pattern was forming. In 2010, Google tried again with Google Buzz. Now this time, they played what they thought was their strongest card. Instead of starting from 0 users, why not integrate Buzz directly into Gmail? Now, in theory, this was brilliant, because Gmail already had hundreds of millions of users. but in execution it was a disaster, to say the least. Users were automatically enrolled without consent. Their most frequent email contacts were publicly exposed. Private connections became visible overnight. For many people, work life and personal life collided instantly. Google found itself facing lawsuits, regulatory scrutiny, and a massive public backlash. Buzz was shut down, but not before Google paid millions in settlements. What was supposed to be Google's secret weapon turned into one of the biggest flops in the company's history. And at this point, Google was in a very difficult place. Not only were they losing resources on social media gigs that hadn't yet materialized into anything tangible, but Facebook was also quietly winning the attention war. Facebook was becoming the place where people spent their time. Minutes per user were rising at a terrifying rate, and engagement was skyrocketing. It was as if people virtually lived on Facebook. What's more, Facebook's advertising model was terrifyingly effective. With Facebook, advertisers could reach people before they even knew they wanted it, and advertisers were willing to pay for that. And to add insult to injury, Facebook was growing so fast that it started poaching Google's own employees. That's when Google realized that they needed to do something, and they needed to do it very fast. So, in 2011, Google went all in with Google+. No more half measures, no more side projects. Google+ was the last card to play. Thousands of employees were reassigned to work on it. Billions were poured into its development. Larry Page even tied employee bonuses directly to Google+'s success. For some comparison, previous social projects had teams in the dozens. Google+ had teams in the thousands. This is how you fight a war. Google+ came with some unique features: Circles, Hangouts, Sparks, Deep, and many more. However, the standout feature was Circles. Circles offered a smarter way to organize relationships, family, friends, and co-workers. It was elegant, and Google+ actually really worked at first. So much so that headlines even declared that Facebook's reign was over. Within the first few years, Google+ accumulated hundreds of thousands of users. But you see, the problem was that many users didn't join because they wanted to. They joined because they had to. Let me explain. The thing is, Google didn't want to source users from scratch, so they forced Google+ into YouTube, Gmail, Android, even Maps. For example, if you wanted to comment on YouTube, you needed a Google+ account. That was how they were able to achieve that high number of users. However, they forgot something very important about social media. It's one thing to have users, and it's another thing to have engagement. They treated social media like one of their numerous productivity apps, and it was about to backfire. The decline was unparalleled. Engagement was very weak, barely even there. Timelines were empty, and the network effect really kicked in. People had accounts, but they weren't active. In business terms, Google+ had inflated vanity metrics and terrible retention. And eventually, reality caught up. It became a ghost social media platform with hundreds of thousands of users. By the mid-2010s, it was all over. Google quietly shut Google+ down. It became one of the biggest fails in tech history, the highest downfall of a project backed by one of the richest companies on Earth. However, in hindsight, Google+ wasn't a failure of resources. It was a failure of understanding of human behavior. Google knew the rudiments of business, but not how social media communities actually worked. Social networks live and die by trust, culture, and organic behavior, not corporate pressure. Google optimized for systems, while Facebook optimized for people. And that's the reason Facebook crushed Google in the war of attention. And you know the most interesting part? This same understanding was how Nvidia rose from being the least chip-producing company to becoming the biggest chip company in the world. To watch their incredible rags-to-riches story, check out our last video titled The Insane Rise of Nvidia. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Thanks for watching.